Right now, you are the only kind of human on Earth. One species, Homo sapiens, 8 billion of us, and not a single other kind. You've probably never even questioned that. It feels like the natural order of things. Of course, there's only one type of human. What else would there be? But that is one of the strangest and loneliest facts about your existence. Because for almost the entire history of our family, being human meant something completely different. It meant sharing the planet with other humans, not other apes, other humans, different species, walking upright, lighting fires, burying their dead, looking back at you with eyes that understood. As recently as 50,000 years ago, a blink in evolutionary time, there were at least 4 other kinds of human alive at the same moment as us. And then one by one they vanished. This is the story of the family we lost, the cousins who lived beside us for hundreds of thousands of years, and the unsettling truth that they never fully disappeared, because some of them are still inside you right now. Picture the Earth around 100,000 years ago. If you could fly over it, here's what you'd see. In Europe and Western Asia, the Neanderthals. Stocky, powerful, cold-adapted, hunting mammoth and bison across the ice. Across the vast stretches of Asia, the Denisovans. A people so mysterious we'd known them for years before we even knew what their faces looked like. On a remote Indonesian island called Flores, a tiny human barely a meter tall that scientists would one day nickname the hobbit. In the Philippines, on the island of Luzon, yet another species, Homo luzonensis, found only in 2019. And deep in Africa, possibly still lingering, Homo naledi, a small-brained human that buried its dead in the dark of a cave. 5 kinds of human, maybe more, all alive, all at once, all while our ancestors were just one branch among many. For our entire existence as a genus, over 2 million years, this was normal. Earth was never a one-human planet, until very, very recently. Let's start with the ones we think we know, the Neanderthals. And almost everything you picture is wrong. Forget the dumb, hunched cavemen from the textbooks. Neanderthals had brains as large as ours, in some cases larger. They controlled fire. They made tools so refined we still can't fully replicate the technique. They wore pigment, made jewelry from eagle talons, and may have painted on cave walls in Spain over 64,000 years ago, before our species even arrived in Europe. They cared for their sick and injured. We've found Neanderthal skeletons of people who survived for years with broken bones and missing limbs, which is only possible if someone fed them, sheltered them, loved them. These were not brutes, these were people. A different kind of person, but a person. And then around 40,000 years ago, they were gone, every last one. For a long time, that was the end of the story. They lived, they died, they lost. But then we learned to read DNA, and the story turned out to be far from over. In 2010, a geneticist named Svante Pääbo did something that sounded impossible. He sequenced the entire Neanderthal genome, from bones tens of thousands of years old. The work was so revolutionary it won him the Nobel Prize in 2002. And when he compared that ancient genome to ours, he found something nobody was ready for. We didn't just live alongside Neanderthals, we had children with them. If your ancestry is from anywhere outside Africa, roughly 1.5 to 2% of your DNA is Neanderthal. Right now in your body, the genes that shape your skin, your hair, your sleep, even how your immune system fights off viruses. Some of them came from a species that's been extinct for 40,000 years. And it doesn't stop there. People from Melanesia, Papua New Guinea, and Aboriginal Australia carry up to 5% Denisovan DNA. One Denisovan gene called EPAS1 is the reason Tibetan people can breathe at 14,000 feet without their blood thickening dangerously. A survival gift, handed down from a species most of us have never even heard of. These humans didn't simply vanish. They were absorbed. They're not just in museums. They're in the mirror. Now here's where it gets stranger, because the Denisovans I just mentioned, for years we knew them from almost nothing, not a skull, not a skeleton. The entire species was first identified in 2010 from a single fragment of a child's finger bone found in a cave in Siberia. That one pinky bone held enough ancient DNA to announce an entire branch of humanity the world had never known existed. Think about that. A whole kind of human, millions of them across thousands of years, and we met them through a fingertip. But the most haunting discovery came in 2018. In that same Siberian cave, researchers tested another tiny bone fragment. It belonged to a girl who died around 90,000 years ago, about 13 years old. And when they read her DNA, they found something that stopped them cold. Her mother was a Neanderthal. Her father was a Denisovan. She wasn't a distant mix. She was a first-generation child, the direct daughter of two entirely different human species. Scientists nicknamed her Denny, and she is physical proof that these humans didn't just coexist. They met. They formed families. They built lives across the boundaries we now draw between species. For a moment, 90,000 years ago, two kinds of human looked at each other and saw someone worth staying with. And then there were the hobbits. On the island of Flores, scientists uncovered a human unlike anything we'd imagined. Homo floresiensis stood barely 3.5 feet tall, with a brain the size of a grapefruit. And yet, they made sophisticated stone tools, used fire, and hunted dwarf elephants the size of ponies. They're a textbook case of something called island dwarfism, when a species trapped on an island with limited food slowly shrinks over generations. An entire lineage of humans miniaturized by their world. And they survived until around 50,000 years ago, which means almost certainly our own ancestors arrived on those islands and met them. Stop and really feel that for a second. For most of our history, if you walked far enough in any direction, you would eventually meet a different kind of human, a different mind, a different way of being a person. The planet was full of them. We are the first humans in 2 million years to walk the earth and find no one else like us looking back. So what happened? Why did every other kind of human disappear and we survived? The honest answer is we still don't fully know. But there are clues. It probably wasn't war, not in the way movies imagine. It was quieter and stranger than that. Part of it was climate. The world was swinging through brutal ice ages, and species adapted to specific environments, like the cold-loving Neanderthals, were fragile when their world changed. Part of it was numbers. Homo sapiens came out of Africa in larger groups with wider trade networks and faster spreading ideas. When two species compete for the same valley, the same prey, the same shelter, small advantages, compounded over thousands of years, become extinction. And part of it, maybe the most uncomfortable part, is that we absorb them. The interbreeding wasn't rare. It happened again and again. So the line between they went extinct and they became us gets blurry. Some of those species may have simply dissolved into our larger population until there was nothing left that was only them. We didn't necessarily defeat the other humans. We may have outlasted them, outnumbered them, and quietly carried them with us until ours was the only branch still standing. For 300,000 years, having other kinds of human in the world was simply how things were. Neighbors who weren't quite us, minds shaped a little differently, a planet that was crowded with ways of being human. And then, in a span of time, so short it barely registers, all of them were gone, and we were alone. We don't think of ourselves as survivors of an extinction, but that's exactly what we are. We are the last surviving species of a family that once filled the earth, the single remaining branch of what used to be an entire forest. We'll never know what they knew, what they believed about the stars, or death, or each other, what it felt like to stand on a ridge and watch a different kind of human walk by in the valley below. They're gone, but every time your body fights off a virus using genes a Neanderthal gave you, every breath a Tibetan takes high in the mountains, thanks to a Denisovan who died 100,000 years ago, they're still here, not as fossils, as you. We were not the only humans. We're just the only ones left to remember them, and we barely can.